Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Jack and Lisa Wilson thought they had found their dream home, a serene property with a private driveway tucked away in Lakeview, Oregon. But their peaceful life was soon disrupted by Marilyn Hunt, a meddlesome HOA president determined to claim their driveway for the neighborhood. What followed was a battle of rights, resilience, and justice. Jack and Lisa Wilson had finally achieved what they'd always dreamed of, a home that perfectly blended privacy, charm, and nature. Nestled on the outskirts of Lakeview, Oregon, their property was a sanctuary of peace. The newlyweds had spent months renovating the two-story house and cultivating a sprawling garden. Most distinctively, their property included a long circular private driveway enclosed by towering cedar trees and lush greenery. This driveway, not only a convenience but a defining feature of their home, was entirely within their legal property boundaries, as verified by their deed. For the first few months, life was idyllic. Jack, an architect, worked remotely from his home office with views of the mountains, while Lisa, an avid gardener, brought the yard to life with colorful flowers and well-manicured hedges. Their mornings were filled with coffee on the porch, and their evenings, quiet strolls under the fading light of the day. They'd even begun planning a neighborhood barbecue to introduce themselves to the surrounding community. Among these neighbors was Marilyn Hunt, the self-appointed president of a nearby homeowners association, HOA. Although the Wilsons' property was not under the HOA's jurisdiction, Marilyn was infamous in Lakeview for her overbearing nature and constant meddling. She was known to roam the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, inspecting properties and delivering unsolicited violations to unsuspecting homeowners. At first, Marilyn seemed pleasant enough when she showed up unannounced to welcome the Wilsons to the area. Her words, though polite, had an air of superiority. "Lovely home," she remarked during her brief visit. "I hope you'll keep it in line with the neighborhood's high standards." Jack and Lisa exchanged puzzled glances, but thanked her for stopping by. They chalked it up to harmless enthusiasm. The trouble began subtly. First, Marilyn's teenage grandchildren began cutting through the Wilsons' driveway on their way to the nearby park. Jack and Lisa didn't mind at first. Children will be children after all. But soon, what started as a shortcut became a full-scale takeover. Marilyn's grandkids began treating the driveway like a public thoroughfare, riding bikes, skateboards, and even hosting impromptu gatherings with friends. The first major issue occurred one afternoon when Lisa returned home to find three teenagers lounging on their driveway. Their bikes sprawled across the pavement, blocking her way. As she attempted to park, one of the boys accidentally knocked over his bike, scratching her car's passenger door. Lisa stepped out and, with a friendly but firm tone, asked them to leave. The boys complied, albeit with some grumbling, and rode off. That evening, Jack and Lisa decided to speak with Marilyn to resolve the issue amicably. "We understand the kids are just having fun," Jack began, "but this is private property. We're worried about liability and potential damage." Marilyn, however, dismissed their concerns with a wave of her hand. "It's always been like this," she said breezily. "The driveway has been a convenient cut-through for years. It's practically a community path at this point. Surely you don't mind a little neighborly accommodation?" Jack attempted to explain the legal ownership of the driveway, even offering to show her the property survey, but Marilyn was uninterested. "You're new here," she said pointedly. "You'll learn that being part of a community means compromise." With that, she turned and left, leaving Jack and Lisa stunned. Over the next few weeks, the situation escalated. Marilyn began spreading rumors among the neighbors that the Wilsons were selfish and anti-community. The driveway became a hotspot for local kids, with bikes, scooters, and even the occasional car parked in their space. On one particularly chaotic afternoon, Lisa counted no fewer than 8 teenagers racing up and down the driveway while blasting music. That was the moment she and Jack decided enough was enough. The once pleasant dream home was becoming a source of stress. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict with Marilyn and her misplaced sense of authority. Jack and Lisa Wilson's attempts to maintain peace with their neighbors were quickly proving futile. Marilyn Hunt, the self-proclaimed enforcer of Lakeview's community values, seemed to take the Wilsons' refusal to acquiesce as a personal affront. While Jack and Lisa had hoped that setting clear boundaries would resolve the matter, Marilyn saw it as a challenge, a chance to impose her authority, regardless of the actual jurisdiction. The situation intensified within days of their conversation with Marilyn. Her teenage grandchildren, emboldened by their grandmother's dismissive attitude, began bringing more friends to the Wilsons' driveway. What was once a quiet path turned into a noisy playground. Bikes and skateboards zipped past Lisa's carefully tended flower beds, and kids leaned their bikes against the couple's cars, leaving scuff marks on the paint. Attempts to reason with the children went ignored. They would simply shrug and say, "Marilyn says it's okay." Jack and Lisa decided to take a firmer stance. Jack installed a series of small, private property signs along the driveway's entrance and sides, hoping this would make their ownership clear. But Marilyn was quick to retaliate. Just hours after the signs went up, Lisa found them torn down and tossed into the bushes. When she replaced them, the signs were ripped down again the following day. One Saturday morning, Lisa woke to find Marilyn standing in the driveway with a group of neighbors, gesturing animatedly toward the Wilsons' home. Curious, Lisa stepped outside to hear Marilyn's speech. "They think they're too good for the rest of us," Marilyn declared loudly, waving her clipboard for emphasis. "They moved in here, and now they're trying to block us off like they own the entire neighborhood." Lisa tried to interject, but Marilyn raised her voice, cutting her off. "They've even put up illegal signs. This driveway has been used by neighbors for years. It's practically a public easement. They can't just close it off because they feel like it." Jack joined Lisa on the porch, his expression calm but resolute. "This is private property," he said firmly. "There's no easement, no community access, and no public right-of-way. If you continue using our driveway without permission, you're trespassing." Marilyn's face reddened with indignation. "You think you can just move here and throw your weight around? We'll see about that." She stormed off, clipboard in hand, with her group of supporters in tow. From that point on, the conflict escalated rapidly. The driveway became even busier, with more teenagers and even a few cars parking along its edges. Marilyn ramped up her campaign against the Wilsons, spreading rumors about their selfishness and elitist attitude at neighborhood gatherings and online forums. Posts appeared in the Lakeview Community Facebook group, accusing Jack and Lisa of endangering children and destroying the fabric of the neighborhood. Marilyn's rhetoric reached a boiling point when she circulated a petition among neighbors, demanding that the Wilsons reopen the driveway. While the petition had no legal basis, its inflammatory language fueled resentment among a handful of residents who believed Marilyn's version of events. One evening, as Jack returned home from a client meeting, he found a minivan parked in the middle of the driveway, blocking his path. A group of teenagers lounged around, seemingly indifferent to his arrival. When Jack honked the horn, one of the kids sneered and said, "You can go around." Exasperated, Jack parked at the street and walked up to the house. The next morning, he and Lisa called a property lawyer to discuss their options. The lawyer confirmed what they already knew. They were well within their rights to enforce their property lines. He recommended installing a security camera system to document any future incidents and suggested that gating off the driveway might be the most effective solution. Eager to reclaim their peace of mind, Jack and Lisa decided to follow through. Within days, contractors arrived to assess the property and take measurements for a pair of automated iron gates. But as soon as the work began, Marilyn escalated her tactics. Standing at the edge of the property, Marilyn began harassing the contractors. "You can't install gates here," she shouted, phone in hand, as if preparing to call the authorities. "This driveway is part of the community, and you're violating HOA rules." One contractor, unfazed, replied, "Ma'am, this isn't HOA property. We've seen the survey. It's private land." But Marilyn wasn't deterred. That afternoon, she began contacting neighbors, urging them to come protest the installation. A small group gathered near the Wilsons' property, shouting complaints and snapping pictures of the construction. Jack documented everything, knowing he might need the evidence later. The final straw came just days before the gates were due to be completed. Late one night, the security cameras captured a shadowy figure approaching the half-installed gates. It was Marilyn. With a pair of wire cutters in hand, she severed the wiring for the automation system, her actions illuminated by the faint glow of the nearby streetlights. The next morning, Jack reviewed the footage and called the police. What had begun as a neighborhood nuisance had officially crossed the line into vandalism. It was clear Marilyn wasn't going to back down, but neither were the Wilsons. The stage was now set for a legal showdown. The vandalism at the gate marked a turning point in the conflict. Jack and Lisa knew they couldn't let Marilyn's latest stunt go unchallenged. Armed with the clear footage from their security cameras, Jack made a formal police report the next morning. By mid-afternoon, 2 officers arrived to review the footage and take their statements. "This is blatant vandalism," one officer said, after watching Marilyn snip the wires with her bolt cutters. "We'll speak with her and take it from there." Marilyn's response was as dramatic as it was predictable. When the officers arrived at her door, she denied everything, claiming she had only been inspecting the illegal gates. However, when shown the footage, her tone shifted to defiance. "Those gates shouldn't even be there. I was protecting community access," she argued, as if her self-appointed mission justified her actions. The police, unimpressed, charged her with vandalism and trespassing. Marilyn was issued a summons and left visibly furious, muttering about ungrateful neighbors. But rather than de-escalate, Marilyn doubled down. That evening, she gathered her supporters for an impromptu meeting in her backyard, loud enough for the Wilsons to overhear snippets of her rallying cry. "This isn't just about me. It's about standing up to outsiders who don't respect our community." The next day, as the gate installation resumed, Marilyn returned to the driveway, this time flanked by several neighbors who seemed more reluctant than supportive. She confronted the contractors again, threatening to sue if they didn't halt construction. Jack stepped out, calm but firm. "Marilyn, the police have already made it clear this is private property. If you interfere again, we'll press charges for harassment on top of the vandalism charges you're already facing," he said. "You think you can bully me?" she snapped, her voice rising. "This isn't over." Marilyn stormed off, leaving her neighbors standing awkwardly in her wake. By the end of the week, the gates were completed, sleek, black iron barriers that stood as both a literal and symbolic line of defense. Jack and Lisa programmed the system, ensuring only family and trusted visitors had access codes. They felt a brief sense of relief. But it didn't last long. Marilyn was far from finished. Flyers began appearing in mailboxes around the neighborhood, accusing the Wilsons of destroying the spirit of community. She posted photos of the gates in the local Facebook group with captions like, "Is this what we want our neighborhood to become?" Although some neighbors expressed mild concern, most were growing tired of her antics. The tension finally boiled over at the next HOA meeting, which Marilyn used as her platform to call for action. Jack and Lisa, though not HOA members, attended to defend themselves. As Marilyn lambasted them for their selfishness, Jack calmly presented the property survey, legal documentation, and even footage of the vandalism. By the time he finished, the room was silent. Marilyn's most vocal allies had little to say, and a few even apologized to the Wilsons afterward. Marilyn, however, glared at Jack and Lisa with a fiery resentment that promised she wasn't finished. But for the first time, Jack and Lisa felt the tide beginning to turn in their favor. The gates were up, the law was on their side, and Marilyn's hold over the neighborhood seemed to be weakening. Still, they couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last they'd see of her. With Marilyn's behavior escalating from harassment to outright vandalism, Jack and Lisa knew it was time to involve the legal system fully. The day after the HOA meeting, they contacted their property attorney, Paul Martin, who had already helped them navigate the complexities of property rights during their initial consultations. Armed with video evidence, police reports, and Marilyn's baseless claims of community easements, Paul assured them they had a strong case. "This isn't just a civil matter anymore," Paul explained. "Between the vandalism, trespassing, and attempts to incite others to infringe on your property rights, we can pursue this aggressively." True to his word, Paul filed a civil lawsuit against Marilyn for damages resulting from the vandalism and trespassing. At the same time, the local prosecutor moved forward with the criminal charges, including property destruction and unauthorized entry. These twin legal actions made it clear that Marilyn's campaign against the Wilsons was coming to a head. Marilyn, however, was undeterred. She hired a defense attorney and began spinning the narrative that she was a victim of overzealous newcomers trying to bully her out of her role as a community leader. She even claimed the gates were a public safety hazard, arguing that emergency vehicles couldn't access the area quickly. A claim easily debunked by the Wilsons' gate design, which included emergency access protocols. As depositions began, Marilyn's hubris started to unravel. Paul meticulously presented the property survey, proving beyond doubt that the driveway was fully enclosed within the Wilsons' land. He also introduced the security footage showing Marilyn cutting the gate wires. This damning evidence left her lawyer scrambling to pivot the defense toward vague notions of tradition and community use, arguments that held no legal weight. During discovery, Marilyn's situation worsened. Paul uncovered emails she had sent to HOA board members in which she explicitly admitted to knowing the driveway was private property. In one email, she even wrote, "If they put up those gates, we'll lose our shortcut for good. I'll figure something out." This revelation crushed her credibility and undermined any pretense of misunderstanding. The HOA, initially hesitant to get involved, began distancing itself from Marilyn. The board issued a statement clarifying that the Wilsons' property was outside HOA jurisdiction and that Marilyn's actions were not sanctioned by the association. Some board members even reached out to Jack and Lisa privately, apologizing for the undue stress caused by Marilyn's rogue behavior. As the civil case moved closer to trial, Marilyn's attorney proposed a settlement. She would pay for the damages to the gates and agree to a no-contact order with the Wilsons in exchange for dropping the lawsuit. However, Jack and Lisa, emboldened by the strong case built by Paul, refused to settle. "We're not just doing this for ourselves," Lisa explained to Paul during a strategy meeting. "If we back down now, she'll keep doing this to other people. This isn't just about a gate. It's about making sure she doesn't bully anyone else." The criminal case proceeded alongside the civil one. During the preliminary hearings, Marilyn's attempts to justify her actions fell flat. The prosecutor presented her as a serial agitator whose actions went far beyond reasonable neighborly disputes. Her defense attorney's efforts to cast her as a misunderstood community advocate were met with skepticism, especially when the jury saw the footage of her vandalizing the gates. By the time the criminal trial began, Marilyn was facing mounting legal costs, a crumbling reputation, and growing isolation within the community. The once formidable president of the HOA was now seen as a liability by her allies. Yet, even as the pressure mounted, Marilyn refused to admit fault, setting the stage for an explosive courtroom showdown that would decide the fate of her increasingly fragile position in the neighborhood. The courtroom was packed on the final day of Marilyn Hunt's criminal trial. What had started as a neighborhood dispute had grown into a high-profile case, with local media covering the proceedings. Jack and Lisa Wilson sat calmly, confident in the irrefutable evidence their attorney Paul Martin had meticulously assembled. Across the aisle, Marilyn's once determined expression was now a mask of frustration and exhaustion. The prosecutor delivered a closing argument that left no room for doubt. "This case is not about community values or neighborhood disputes," he declared. "It's about one individual who repeatedly ignored the law, damaged private property, and attempted to manipulate others to justify her actions. The evidence is clear. Marilyn Hunt knowingly trespassed and vandalized property that was not hers to control." The jury deliberated for just 2 hours before delivering a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all counts, including criminal vandalism and trespassing, Marilyn was sentenced to a hefty fine, community service, and a 1-year probation, during which she was forbidden from contacting the Wilsons or stepping onto their property. In the civil case, the outcome was equally decisive. Marilyn was ordered to pay for all damages to the Wilsons' gates, including the cost of repairs and additional legal fees. The judgment also included a financial penalty for emotional distress, recognizing the months of harassment Jack and Lisa had endured. The victory was more than just legal, it was symbolic. Marilyn's defeat sent a clear message to the community. Property rights were not negotiable, and bullying tactics would not be tolerated. The HOA, which had been noticeably silent during the trial, held an emergency meeting to remove Marilyn from her position as president. The board members unanimously voted her out, citing her reckless behavior and the damage she had caused to the HOA's reputation. In the weeks following the trial, the Wilsons noticed a marked shift in the neighborhood. Neighbors who had once sided with Marilyn now avoided her entirely. Some even came to Jack and Lisa to apologize for their earlier behavior, admitting that they'd been misled by Marilyn's manipulations. A few thanked the Wilsons for standing their ground, expressing relief that someone had finally challenged the toxic environment Marilyn had fostered. Marilyn's isolation grew. Her public attempts to portray herself as a victim fell flat, as the community had seen firsthand the consequences of her actions. Even her closest allies began to distance themselves, wary of being associated with her tarnished reputation. For Jack and Lisa, the victory brought a sense of closure. The gates stood tall and secure, a testament to their perseverance. As the dust settled, they felt a renewed sense of peace on their property. Their once stressful home had finally become the sanctuary they had dreamed of. Still, the couple's resolve had been tested, and they emerged stronger for it. It wasn't just about the gates, Lisa reflected one evening as they sat on their porch. It was about standing up for what's right and making sure no one else has to go through this. With Marilyn's influence neutralized and their community beginning to heal, Jack and Lisa could finally move forward, their hard-fought victory paving the way for a brighter future. The aftermath of Marilyn Hunt's downfall rippled through the Lakeview community in unexpected ways. With Marilyn no longer wielding her self-proclaimed authority, a sense of relief settled over the neighborhood. Neighbors who had once walked on eggshells, fearing her scrutiny and judgment, now felt a newfound freedom to enjoy their properties without interference. For the Wilsons, life finally returned to normal. Their driveway, now securely gated, was once again a peaceful entrance to their home. The iron gates, which had become a symbol of their perseverance, were complemented by flowering vines Lisa planted, giving the property a welcoming but unmistakably private charm. Security cameras remained in place, though they rarely captured anything more than the occasional delivery driver or curious deer. The HOA underwent a major transformation as well. Marilyn's removal sparked a wave of reform within the organization. The board revised its bylaws to ensure no single individual could wield unchecked power. New leadership focused on fostering a sense of community rather than enforcing petty rules. Block parties and community events replaced heated meetings and neighborhood drama. Neighbors who had once distanced themselves from the Wilsons now began to engage with them warmly. Some apologized for siding with Marilyn, while others thanked Jack and Lisa for taking a stand. One elderly neighbor who had previously faced Marilyn's ire over an unapproved garden gnome remarked, "You've shown us all that we don't have to live in fear." For Jack and Lisa, the experience left lasting lessons. They'd learned the value of knowing their rights, staying calm under pressure, and standing firm against intimidation. More importantly, they'd proven that even in the face of relentless opposition, justice could prevail. Their victory not only restored peace to their home, but also brought unity to a fractured neighborhood. The gates that had once symbolized division now represented something far greater: the power of resilience and the importance of protecting one's boundaries, both physical and personal. As Jack and Lisa Wilson reflected on their journey, they realized the conflict with Marilyn had been about much more than a gated driveway. It was a test of their resilience, their belief in doing what was right, and their ability to stand firm under pressure. The lessons they learned extended beyond property lines. They had discovered the importance of setting clear boundaries, both literal and figurative, and the strength that comes from standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful they appear. The neighborhood, once under Marilyn's oppressive influence, was now a brighter, friendlier place. The Wilsons' victory inspired other residents to reclaim their voices, fostering a spirit of mutual respect and collaboration. Even the HOA board, once complicit in Marilyn's reign, began championing fairness and transparency, ensuring no one could misuse power again. For Jack and Lisa, the gates weren't just a safeguard for their property. They were a symbol of perseverance and the belief that standing up for what's right can lead to lasting change. In the end, they turned a divisive battle into a stronger, united community.